Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, president of Convention Estates. Excited to be with you for the Sunday night BattleCry. What a BattleCry it's going to be because it's been an incredible week. You know, one of the things that's so amazing to me right now is every day seems like a Black Swan day. And I don't know if you ever heard the term Black Swan. Often refers to financial events, but it can refer to any major unpredictable event, something that happens just sort of out of the blue. The black swans are very rare compared to white swans, so they call them black swan events. And a black swan is a kind of world-changing event. Could be politics, could be finance, could be ecological disaster, environmental disaster, just something that nobody really foresees at a given moment. And when you look at a news cycle, we occasionally have black swan events. We've had some recently, but they're supposed to be rare. And the weird thing right now for me is I feel like every day is a black swan event. In fact, I'm waiting for a white swan day, just that day when I wake up and I look at the news and there's nothing really going on and I can just do my job and things don't blow up and there aren't riots and there aren't new presidential candidates and there isn't somebody resigning from a presidential race and there isn't an assassination attempt. You get what I'm talking about, right? Like that's what it feels like right now is the news is like that every day. And one of the things that happens when it's like that is we tend to feel like we're in the fog of war. And this is my call to you, my action item for you, which is to calm down and stick your head up and rise above the fog of war. Because the fog of war makes you think not clearly. The fog of war is filled with propaganda and conspiracy theories. The fog of war is so many news items you can't possibly keep track of, and so much news that the absolutely false blends with the absolutely true. And it's really hard to tell the difference. And so, what you need to do is take that deep breath, get up on your step stool, your mental step stool, and try to bring your head above the fog of war and look at what's really going on around you. And when you do that, I think it's important that you do this. Look and decide what you think is really important because there's always going to be a massive amount of stuff going on. And I think this fog of war is intentionally induced by the political powers, by the deep state, by the media, so that you're confused and so that you don't know exactly what's true. And so that you'll grab onto whatever they tell you, whatever they tell us, whatever we read on the latest blog, whatever we see in the latest podcast, and that becomes our reality. Well, one thing I can assure you, even if it's coming from me, it's not reality. It's my opinion. It's my view on the news. I hope you've learned to trust me because I always tell you the truth as best as I possibly can. But remember, it's also my perspective. It's not your perspective. And I don't expect that your perspective will always agree with mine. So if something sounds like maybe that's not right, well, go out and research it. And I'm always going to be straight with you. I'm always going to tell you, this is my opinion. This is fact. If there's any question about that, I want you to know I got a lot of opinions just like everybody. I also try to have a grasp of the facts. So I'm going to tell you which is which. And I do my best every day to climb up my little step ladder, to survey the landscape, and to rise above the fog of war. So that's the action item for today, which is always, especially as we go into the November elections over the next few months, rise above the fog of war, calm, cool, and collected, try to discern facts from propaganda, fiction from reality as best you can. And if you're not sure, don't take a position. You don't always have to take a position on everything. I get asked to take a position on so many things. And a lot of times I say, I don't have enough information on that. I think that's a really wise thing to say. Doesn't mean I'm really wise. I just think it's a wise thing to do. When somebody asks you about something you don't really know, you don't have to talk about that thing. So let's talk about President Joe Biden. Absolutely, unequivocally, undeniably, no way other than God telling him to get out of the race is running for the presidency of the United States of America until he's not, like 2 days later. Winston's here. He thought it was as weird as you do. Biden's in, Biden's out. Who knows what's really going on? I think he got tons of pressure. I think there was probably 25th Amendment pressure. I don't know what all pressure they applied to him, but obviously an absolute ton of pressure. And he is now out. And that changes everything. Now, I got a lot of comments and questions immediately after that. I got media inquiries. All right, what do you think happens now? And my answer was mostly at that point, right when he said he wasn't going to run, I don't know. I hadn't had enough time to absorb it and to form a cogent opinion. I wanted to read the opinions of other people who I respect and really try to put something together that was cohesive. And the first question was at the time, where's Joe Biden? Like, he made one of the most historic announcements ever in the history of the United States presidency, and he didn't do it in person. It was in writing. There was question about, did he even write it? I mean, how do we know he even wrote it? People were questioning the legitimacy of his signature. I don't know whether that stuff's important or not. People were questioning, is he alive? Is he not alive? And I wrote a few things about it. And what I wrote was mostly, I don't know. Because I think when you don't know, the wise thing is to say you don't know. I also didn't know what effect this would have on the race. Look, we all know Joe Biden was down and down substantially. We all saw Joe Biden at the debate have an absolute cognitive meltdown, right? Non compos mentis. His brain is not there. He's not cogent. We all knew that for a long time, but then it became public for all the country to see. And then he was out. So what did it mean? Who was going to replace him? The next thing that happened was massive speculation, right? Who was it going to be? Was it going to be Kamala Harris? Obviously, the natural successor as the vice president. She would be a quote unquote historic figure as the first female Black, although I'm confused because I thought she was Indian and Haitian or something. I don't know. First female Black presidential candidate. I'm waiting for the first female Black paraplegic, lesbian, transgender, deaf, mute presidential candidate. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we can add to that list. But anyway, she's got her DEI card. Every hole that she possibly can is punched. So that was a question. Was it going to be her? Was it going to be Whitmer? Was it going to be Governor Gruesome Newsom out in California? There are a bunch of options, but it looked like this thing was lined up from the start, and Harris rolled it up pretty quickly. She started to roll up all the people who were endorsing her. Of course, the Clintons came in first. The Schumer came in pretty quickly thereafter. Winston is tormenting here in case you guys can't see. He's just, when I get on video and I'm excited, he's excited, and he's still at 2 years old, kind of a puppy. So forgive me for having Winston torment me in the middle of the battle cry, but that's just reality around here. So you have all these people who were jockeying, but it looks like Kamala just rolled it up pretty quickly. And so the last one that we will see, or that we saw, was the endorsement of the Obamas. And it was interesting that came last. I'm wondering what kind of concessions they got out of that. So then Harris hits the campaign trail. And I have to say, the Republicans hit Harris, and they start hitting her appropriately, because the way to hit Harris is not to hit Harris that she's a DEI hire, which of course she is. It's not to hit her on that she slept her way to the top, which at least she slept her way into politics. We all know that from Willie Brown in California. I lived there at the time. The real way to hit her is she's literally the most radical person ever to run for the presidency of the United States of America. And she's on record, and the Republicans have tape of this, and they're showing it all over now. She's on record saying she wants an open border. She's on record saying she wants all those people to have health care on your dime, right? Which is utterly impossible. Open our border to the world and then pay for everybody's health care. She's on record saying that she wants to shut down fracking. She's on record saying she wants to shut down offshore oil energy. She's on record saying she wants to end private insurance. She's on record supporting radical Muslim causes, Islamic causes. She's on record raising money to bail people out who did violence and mayhem in the 2020 riots. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff about Kamala Harris. Her dad was a known communist, a known Marxist. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff. And Republicans are going to have to attack her on all of those, what I would describe as very substantive issues. She was made the border czar. This is an absolutely unbelievable thing, right? You look at the media, and they now love Kamala Harris. 5 minutes ago, they hated her. They now love Kamala Harris. And they say she was not the border czar, because Republicans are saying she was the border czar and the border's a disaster. But we've got everybody, including that same media, saying she was the border czar. This is a weird thing going on, is all the propaganda, right? And what is propaganda? Propaganda is literally the media and the government pumping you full of information that's not true to try to get you to believe things that aren't true. This is part of the fog of war. Keep your head above that fog of war. Look around, find out the truth, come back down into the fight armed with the truth. That's super important. So it's going to be weird. There's a bunch of debate now around the debates. And Kamala Harris was trying to accept Joe Biden's debate with Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump said wisely, I haven't even said I'm going to debate you. You're not Joe Biden. I had a debate scheduled with Joe Biden. Joe Biden dropped out, kind of like, who are you? And maybe we'll debate and we'll debate later on. I don't know. We'll see. So I think that's actually the right approach for Trump. They're trying to say Trump's cowardly for doing it. I think it's absolutely the right move. All right, this week we also had a major international event. We had Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, visit the United States and speak at a joint session of Congress. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the speech. I did. I think it's one of the best speeches I've ever seen. It expressed absolute moral clarity. It drew the lines between good and evil, and I think he said this, between not Western civilization and everybody else, or Western civilization and Islam, but Western civilization and barbarism. And he laid it out clear, and he took it to the protesters that were in the streets of DC carrying Hamas flags, burning US flags, damaging and desecrating our monuments. He basically said, you're fools and you should be ashamed of yourselves, and you're aligned with Hamas terrorists. And it was an incredible speech. 50 Democrats boycotted that speech. They just didn't show up to Congress. 50 Democrats, including the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, now running for president, let's not forget, who is the presiding officer of the Senate and who chose not to show up for this historic speech. So to all those Democrats, I say, you are on the side of terror. You are supporting the terrorists. You are supporting Hamas. You shouldn't even be sitting in the United States Congress. And they had very little to say, for the most part, about the Hamasniks, the Hamazis, out rioting in the streets, burning American flags, desecrating American monuments, including a replica of the Liberty Bell. Absolutely incredible stuff. And where were the Capitol Police? And for the most part, the police, the DC police, the Capitol Police, almost nowhere to be seen. At Union Station, it looked like there were a few of them facing a crowd of hundreds, maybe thousands. I don't know. Eventually, they retreated. And this is law and order. We don't have law and order in Washington, D.C., because we have D.C. as a town run by people who hate the United States of America, who don't believe in law and order. Of course, that is unless they're enforcing it against people who come to Washington on January 6th to peacefully protest, right? Now, then those people get arrested and they're going to be thrown in jail for the rest of their lives and deprived of their constitutional rights. But if you tear down American flags, burn them, and put up Hamas flags or Palestinian flags instead, well, 4 of those people, I understand, got arrested, and all of them had their charges dropped. That's what's going on in Washington, D.C. There's a way to fix this, by the way. The Congress, if and when we get a Republican president, Republican House and Senate, can remove home rule from D.C. Congress actually has authority over Washington, D.C., and that's my opinion of what they ought to do. They ought to clean up that city. They ought to make it into America's city once again, make it safe, make it secure, make it clean, restore law and order, there should be no D.C. mayor, D.C. city council. They've proven they can't govern that city. They've turned it into a worse than a swamp. It's a hellhole filled with crime and prostitution and drugs, and we need to clean it up. So I'm hoping that the next Republican administration gets in there and does that. But I think going back all the way to the Netanyahu speech, great position. Look, whatever your position is on foreign aid, Israel is our only democratic ally in the Middle East. They have full human rights in Israel. There is no apartheid in Israel. There's no genocide taking place in Gaza. And it's my opinion that we ought to support them for the good of the United States of America. It is to our advantage. They are a technologically advanced country. They develop a lot of weapons with us. We do a lot of joint security work together. It is to the advantage of the United States to support Israel. Look, that's where I'll always come down. I'm a huge supporter of Israel for biblical reasons, but I'm also a huge supporter of Israel because they are a critical ally of the United States in the world. I'm an America First guy, and I think when you help Israel, you're helping America. Netanyahu said, when we stop the Iranians from getting nukes, we're stopping the Iranians from attacking the United States as well. And that's absolutely true. I saw another thing on TV that really bothered me this week. I shouldn't say on TV. I think I saw it on YouTube, which was Christopher Wray testifying before Congress. And for some reason, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, seems unable to know whether or not Donald Trump got shot by a bullet. I watched the video. I saw the still shots of the trail from the bullet that whizzed past or through his ear. I don't know exactly which bullet that was. I saw what happened to President Trump. There's no evidence of shrapnel. There's no evidence of monitors blowing up or plastic blowing up that hurt his ear. Why can't Christopher Wray say that President Trump took a bullet to the ear? Okay, this is because the FBI is deeply, deeply broken. Maybe not involved in this assassination. Certainly, at the very least, the entire Homeland Security Department, Mayorkas from all the way on down. Kim Cheadle now resigned. By the way, her second in command who took over was the guy actually responsible for security at the Trump rally. So getting rid of Kim Cheadle makes it worse, if anything. And Christopher Wray can't even say whether Trump took a bullet. I think this is outrageous. This is why we have to get rid of not just Christopher Wray, but we have to get rid of the FBI. We have to tear it down to the ground. We ought to literally, I don't mean this facetiously, we ought to literally tear down the FBI headquarters. It's called the Herbert Hoover Building, which is unbelievable. He was an incredibly corrupt person. We had to tear it down. We had to build a park there, and we had to reconstitute the FBI in some other way, put its functions elsewhere. That is a permanently broken institution. And by the way, for those of you, and there are always out there people who say to me, well, Mark, some of the FBI agents are really good, solid guys. I'm going to say something that's really harsh, particularly harsh. No, they're not. Because at this point, they know the FBI is broken. They're carrying the badge. They're enforcing policies at the FBI that they know are wrong. And they're doing it, why? For their pensions, because they don't want to sacrifice their pensions. Look, I understand doing the right thing is hard, and you will sacrifice if you do the right thing. A lot of you do that every single day. I want to know, where's the press conference with 500 or 1,000 FBI agents that are standing against this insanity? I mean, and until I see that, until I see agents turning in their badges in mass or holding a press conference or whatever, then I have no sympathy whatsoever for the quote unquote good FBI agents. Christopher Wray is a deeply, deeply deep state actor. I don't know how else to put it. And he's got to go, and the FBI has to go. All right. In more cultural news, we go to Harley-Davidson. Now, full disclosure, I've never been a motorcycle guy. I've never owned a motorcycle. I don't ride motorcycles, but I still know that Harley-Davidson is the iconic American motorcycle, right? And there's something special about seeing a big old loaded Harley cruising down the street, the sound of the exhaust pipes, the sound of the engine. It's just a beautiful American thing to behold. But apparently, Harley-Davidson has decided to go completely woke. I recently saw a videotape of the CEO saying that it's his intent by 2030, all of Harley's motorcycles will be electric. Do you think they're going to sort of pump that nice Harley sound through the speakers? Or they're going to be quiet? You know, I know they already make an electric bike, which doesn't sell, but he's going to try and force all electric bikes on the Harley public. I don't think that's going to go over very well. Have you ever seen the kind of people that ride Harleys? Mostly, you know, America loving, red blooded, flag waving, a lot of veterans, people like you and me, and they're not going to go for this. And it also broke this week, courtesy of Robbie Starbuck, our friend Robbie Starbuck, great guy out of Nashville, that they are fully woke DEI, a great American company, full DEI training on supporting the alphabet soup, crazy people, gender ideology, gay parades, all this stuff. And so Robbie Starbuck broke this story, let this CEO know that he was breaking the story. And now thousands and thousands of people are calling Harley, emailing Harley, writing to Harley, calling their Harley dealerships, telling them they're not going to tolerate it. They don't want to be associated with a brand like that. I actually called Harley myself. The first time I called Harley, I sat on hold for 45 minutes and never got through. I finally gave up. Second time I called, which was a few hours later in the day, it took me about 15 minutes holding, got through, told the guy I was disgusted with what Harley was doing. He told me he had no idea what I was talking about. I told him all the DEI stuff and all the LGB agenda stuff. And he said, oh, I've never heard of any of that. And I questioned that. I said, seriously, you're answering the call. You're going to tell me you're not getting other people to call in? And he said, well, I can't comment on what other people are calling about. And I told him maybe he want to find another job, because if he's going to be dishonest with customers, I know they're being inundated with calls. And if he's going to be dishonest with me, that's not good customer service either. So I lodged my complaints with Harley. You should do the same. Go to Harley-Davidson's website, pull up their customer service phone number, give them a call, and tell them that you're completely opposed to Harley-Davidson going woke. Look, this worked with John Deere. It worked with Tractor Supply Company. Robbie Starbuck has been championing these things. You can follow him online at Robbie Starbuck on X, and I recommend you do so. And let's start to push back on these companies, great American brands going woke. Just like what happened with Bud Light, it should not be allowed, and we should push back against it. That's something that you can actually do day in and day out. Now, what am I doing in this coming week? COS travel? Nope, not at all. No COS travel for me right now. I am locked down. I am chained here to my desk because this is grandbaby watch week. Yep, Patty and I are expecting our very first grandchild any moment. Super excited about it. So I told everybody, clear the calendar. I'm happy to work from home. I'm happy to be doing my usual stuff, but I will not be on the road when our first grandbaby is born. Now, I know a lot of you guys know what that's like. I don't know what it's like because it's our first. So feel free to write to me. Let me know how it was for you when you held your first grandchild. And hopefully by next week, this time, I can tell you what it was like for me. So I'm going to be home. Before we go to Q&A, I want to talk to you about biblical citizenship. Every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, I am teaching biblical citizenship with Rick Green and Patriot Academy. The one thing you can be absolutely sure is when Rick Green and I are together and we're teaching biblical citizenship, who knows what's going to happen. We have a great time together. We always have fun. We do a little bit of topical stuff at the beginning, maybe 10, 15 minutes maximum. Then it's about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes of recorded class. Incredible stuff. A lot of stuff that we recorded live in Independence Hall. A lot of other great speakers. We're coming up on week 3, and it's not too late to join. So all you got to do is go to patriotacademy.com/COS. If you sign up as a coach, you can go back and you can watch the first 2 weeks also, and then you can be up to speed. But even if you can't do that, don't worry about it. There's no cost to sign up as a coach or to watch these at all. Go to patriotacademy.com/COS. Also, don't forget, your cell phone is a weapon being used against you if you're paying money to AT&T or T-Mobile or any of these other companies because they hate you and they hate your values. And so you want to go with a company that doesn't hate you and doesn't hate your values, that supports the things you support. That's Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/COS Patriot. Use promo code COS Patriot, all caps, and that'll give you free activation. Again, patriotmobile.com/COS Patriot. Finally, in the announcements, before we go to questions, this is the last chance to apply for our Emerging Leaders Program. I'm always excited about this. I'm interviewing a bunch of great young people right now. This is a paid remote internship. If you want to know what it's about and you've got an extraordinary young person in your life, say between 17 and 25, go to conventionofstates.com/intern. Check it out and have them sign up today. There's one last thing. I said the last one was last, but here's one. We have a new endorser announcement coming soon, so watch for that. We're always excited when new people are endorsing. National Parents Day is on July 28th. That's today. I always feel like every day is National Parents Day. If you're a parent, it's so cool being a parent. Like, why do you need extra recognition? And National Whistleblowers Day is Tuesday, the 30th. Encourage anybody you know works for the government and sees bad stuff, or works for a company and sees bad stuff, to be a whistleblower. All right, ask Mark anything. You can submit your questions at Convention of States Action/Ask Mark, and really pretty much anything goes. So here's what we have today. First, from Steve O'Connor. If you claim to want fiscal responsibility, how can you ignore the money as debt system, which condemns both the aggregate economy and especially the government to perpetual debt to the private banking system? If you mean money printing, which essentially creates inflation, which is money as debt, I'm completely opposed to that. I would be in favor of going back to the gold standard. I think we need to, at the very least, start by auditing the Fed and figuring out what the hell they do and what they're up to. But I really think we need to end the Fed. I think we need to go back to a real monetary system, real currency. I feel like eventually that's going to be forced on us by fiscal reality. So, Steve, I'm not exactly sure what you mean as ignore the money as debt system, which condemns both the aggregate economy and the government to perpetual debt, the private banking system. But I think we agree. I just don't understand the language you're using. David Combs asks, could the meeting of the states propose a line item veto for the president? I don't think so, David, because I don't think that takes power away from the federal government. And we specifically couched this whole thing to limit the scope, power, and jurisdiction of the federal government. That would be an extra power for the president. That would probably require a separate convention. All right, that's what we've got for this week. It's really great being home with you guys. I'll keep you posted on the grandbaby announcement. Until next week, God bless you, and I'll see you on the BattleCry.